at these questions people already have in. Great, great, great. We'll get to all this. Keep them coming. Keep the questions coming. Hey, everybody, while we're waiting to get started here, who's doing something fun for 4th of July? Anyone? Comment your plans. I'm going to Maine. Oh, there's Kim. Okay. So hang on. I think the technology is working.
Hi.
Oh my God, we did it! Yay! Hi.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm okay. How are you doing?
I'm good. Like 2 seconds ago, the power went out right in the house. I was like, no! But it came back.
Okay, good. I swear, technology. It's like we need it, but it's just not there yet, but it's so amazing. So,
I know.
Anyway, I have a small cold. I apologize. I have a cough drop. I'm a little sniffly, but
I'm not
fine.
worried about you sneezing on me. I think we'll be fine.
We'll be fine this time. People are still joining in. Should we dive in? Should we give it another minute? You think we're okay? Okay, we're diving in. Everyone here is saying we're diving in.
Let's dive.
Okay, so I'm going to welcome everyone. Thanks for joining our second Instagram Live with Lauren. I feel weird saying that, but so awesome to have you guys again. Our We Care campaign, I just wanted to share with everyone, raised over 100,000 hours of care. $100,000 last month, which is 4,000 hours of care for people.
Oh, that's great.
So that's 4,000 hours that caregivers who are exhausted and busy taking care of their loved ones will get a break to go to the grocery store and live life and be a human being, which is, as Kim and I both know and we'll get into, is not that easy for a caregiver. So thank you so much for all your support. We're so excited to talk to Kim and hear her story. Most of you might know her as an amazing actress from some movies like Father of the Bride, TV shows like According to Jim. But I've been fortunate to get to know her as an Alzheimer's advocate who has shared her story so beautifully and spoken up for dementia advocates for a number of years. So thank you so much for being here with us.
Oh, thank you for having me. This is great. And I have to say, I'm just so impressed with everything you've done and so grateful to you for the awareness that you've raised for the cause and especially for caregivers. And, you know, my dad was the primary caregiver for my mom, and it was just invaluable when he could get away for a little bit and try to restore, because it is, first of all, it's an expensive disease to pay for the care that, you know, that is needed. You know, people often have to quit their jobs, and but just to give a caregiver a break to get away is just so great. So I'm so grateful too for that, and also for just like, you know, giving the cause like levity, and I mean that's a hard thing to do with a cause like this, but you know, just some youthfulness and some light and humor. I mean, I love everything you guys are doing.
Oh, thank you. Well, I always say I've met such amazing people in this journey, and although this has been such a dark time in my life, also, not to quote your book, there's been so much light in it, and we'll get to all that. But you know, I've met so many amazing people. So, you know, where there is darkness, there can be light. So anyway, I thought maybe we could get started if you could maybe just share with everyone your family's story about your mom and how you guys, you know, how this all started and how your family got through it, and just give us a little overview so everyone can understand what you've gone through.
Sure. So my mom was diagnosed with a rare form of dementia called primary progressive aphasia, which we found out later was caused by Alzheimer's disease. She was diagnosed in 2005 or 6. You know, the diagnosis took a while to figure out. And it started with her having trouble. Sorry?
Especially back then, people were, we know even more now, but even then it was still it's still a mystery, but anyway, sorry.
Yeah, it took like a year or two to really figure it out, and then we got a definitive diagnosis, and we were told that within 7 years, probably she would need full-time care, and that there was no treatment and no cure. Okay, you know, and be gone. So that was really, really hard for us. And the other thing that was really hard is that my mom, there was even more of a stigma back then. And
Yeah.
my mom didn't want us to talk about it, didn't want us to tell anybody. So we really missed out on a lot of resources and support systems that we could have had we just talked about it.
Right.
So we were in the dark for a lot of it. Things like getting the car keys away from my mom when she absolutely should not have been driving. We didn't know what to do. You know, we just didn't want to upset her because she was having trouble speaking. She was getting more and more emotional, sort of irrational. I tell people that the first time I really noticed there was a problem was actually at my wedding.
Oh.
She was the bridezilla at my wedding.
Gosh.
She was really upset that she wasn't part of the ceremony, and like the day of, she was just a bundle of tears.
Oh.
So we gave her something to read, and in the ceremony, she just couldn't even get through the reading. She was just stuttering, and so looking back, that was really the first indication, because my mom was a fundraiser for the Michael J. Fox Foundation for Parkinson's research. Like, she was an amazing human, and was used to getting up and speaking in front of people. And this was the first time that she really could not get through this moment.
Yeah.
But it followed the plan the doctor said it would. And within 7 years, my dad was taking full-time care of her. He was like a shell of his former self. He had a heart attack scare. He thought he was having a heart attack, and it wasn't. It was really stress related. He was skinny and pale, and it was harder and harder for us. I have a brother and a sister and myself as long distance caregivers to really figure out what he needed and how to help him. I was having kids. I had toddlers, I had a toddler and a baby. And, that moment of realizing that I had to protect my children from my mother.
Yeah.
That was really intense. Because she was just confused and couldn't really remember how to hold a baby. So I write in my book about actually seeing my baby, who was 3 weeks old, falling out of my mother's arms backward, and she happened to catch him by the feet right before he hit the floor. But just realizing okay, it's a whole new ball game now.
Yeah. What did you do in those moments? How do you how do you process something like that? Do you just forge ahead? What's going through your mind in times like that?
It was this constant balance between trying to protect my mom's pride, which was such a powerful force.
Yeah.
It's I can't state enough how important it was as a family to try to keep lifting her up and keep her morale up, and give her that sense of autonomy wherever possible.
Yeah.
It was that balancing act.
What were some things that you guys did to do that, to sort of keep her positive and keep her boosted?
We tried to laugh as much as possible. We'd take her out, things she loved to do. Take her shopping, which was a disaster because she wanted everything, I have to say, I was concerned when we found out that she would never know my kids. I felt like she wouldn't know them and they wouldn't know her. But as she progressed in her disease, she actually was super fun in a lot of ways. Like all of the manners and things that she had in place my whole life suddenly went out the window, and she was she was spontaneous and really kind of loud laughter. And if we embraced that, it was actually really sweet. And she and my kids she and my oldest Huck had a really nice relationship.
That's great.
So yeah, we just tried to keep her laughing as much as possible. And then when there were the harder moments, to try to hear that, but then move through it and distract and sort of redirect as much as possible.
Yeah, sure. You and I share something so similar, which is that we were caregivers for a caregiver, which is, how I consider myself with my dad.
Right.
I'm curious, what were some of the things that you did during that time to help support him, to be there for him, even though you didn't live around the corner? How were you a caregiver for a caregiver?
Yeah. Well, when my mom came to Tennessee, I would say, bring her over and you go. You just go. He wanted so much, he wanted to just be alone. And he used to go on these silent retreats where he didn't want to talk to anyone. He didn't want to hear anyone talking to him. So when they would come, I would try to take as much of that off of his shoulders as I could. And then many times, my brother and sister and I flew to New York to try to like sit down with him and say, what can we do? You know, to strategize with him. We went to a group therapy with my mom and him. We kind of tried to figure out how to reframe the conversation about getting them more support in the house, and you know, get my mom on board with that, so that my mom was saying, yeah, Gurney, you know, to her husband, you need help, you're not doing well, so that she was on our side, because so often she felt like the one that was the problem. So my dad was great and tolerated that really well. But you know, so often we were told, no, I'm fine, I got it. So really part of my job as the caregiver was to say, no, this is what I see. And this is what concerns me. There was one incident that really freaked my husband out when we were in California all visiting, and my dad said, oh, what can I do to help? And I had Jasper, who was then 2, and I said, oh, can you go put Jasper in the car? And he took Jasper out to the driveway, which was right by the street. And then my mom got upset, and my dad just put Jasper down and left and went to worry about my mom. He had so many balls in the air that he couldn't keep track of everything. And Jasper was right near the street, and Brad just happened to come out, and Jasper was just kind of wandering around. And, you know, again, like, it just reminded us that things we used to take for granted, we couldn't take for granted anymore. We needed eyes on everybody, including my father, unfortunately. You know, when we were worried about him, you know, concerned that he might lose his life before my mother. His health was even more in jeopardy. No,
I've experienced the same kind of thing, you know, with my dad, and just watching, you know, the years before, you know, they allowed help to come in. And we're fortunate that we can bring help in. But in those years where he was all on his own, I mean, it was not a good situation. And clearly his health was failing faster than hers was. And so it's so important that we are there for our caregivers and give them the breaks. Another question for you I have is, you know, you're a proponent of having end-of-life conversations with people, knowing what someone's wishes are, which is obviously a very hard conversation for us to have with our parents, or anyone we love for that matter. What is your experience with that? Were you able to have a conversation, you know, early on with your parents before your mom was too advanced? How do you suggest that people go about having these types of conversations?
I think it's such an important conversation to have, and I learned the hard way because my mother did not want to have that conversation. The most we got out of her was at a restaurant with my sister Ashley. She reached across the table and said, don't let Dad take care of me. And that was it. And they never wrote it down. You know, and the other thing I do remember, the other thing that's so common, because I've heard this from people before, is she used to say to me, if I ever get like that, just shoot me.
My mom told me, as we stood over my grandmother who had it, she told me, if I get like this, smother me with a pillow.
Right. Oh, thanks, Mom. Yeah, that's going to give me a great life.
You
know? It's not practical information. It's not practical advice. So, you know, we have a living will. We've written it down. Be as specific as you can, but yet I also wish that my mom had just written down, I trust you. I trust you to make the choices that you need to make for you and your family when you get into that situation. And I know you'll take care of me, and I trust that you'll do what's best for me and for you. And, you know, and because you don't know what situation your family's going to be in if something like this happens. But there's so much guilt involved, sadly, with any of these decisions. Even if it's probably written out, there's probably guilt involved in what you have to decide to do. And so any specific instructions is helpful, but ultimately saying, I love you and I trust you, and, you know, to do what's best. And that really would have helped us. You know, it took us a couple years. I think we were a couple years too late in putting my mom into a long-term residence. So if she had been more specific in the instructions, I think that would have happened sooner.
Yeah, that's interesting. Oh, wait. Oh, sorry. Froze for a second, but we're back. Okay.
Oh, you're freezing.
Yeah, it's such an interesting.
Are you there?
Oh,
Technical difficulties.
okay. Are we back? Am I frozen? Am I back?
Okay.
Okay. Okay, we're back. Yeah, I mean, these things are so dark and so heavy.
I'm here.
Oh, okay.
I'm here. I'm wondering if it's because my power went out. My
Okay, I
internet
think
might be
everyone's
funky.
seeing it. I think it might just be us. So people here are saying it's working. So I think we're okay. Yeah, I mean, these moments are the darkness. They are these things that we all dread, but are a part of life. And I found that, you know, if you can approach it with your family and with trust, as you said, which is such an amazing, strong word with family, is that trust. You have to trust the people who know you and who love you, and it is a really beautiful thing to say. We're not frozen, right? Okay. So the opposite of that is, of course, the title of your book, Where the Light Gets In. And so what inspired that title? What are some of the moments where you have felt light in this darkness?
I have felt light when I started telling my story. I felt a lot of light. I started with a Red Book article, and it was the first time I'd ever really spoken publicly about it. And the response was huge from people. And it was very healing for me to be able to be honest about it finally. And I realized that there was more there that I wanted to say. So writing my book was very therapeutic, and I named it Where the Light Gets In because there were so many silver linings that I saw that I realized that my mother was still my teacher. There was a moment when I had started, I'm embarrassed to say it, but I had started speaking about her in the past tense because it felt like she wasn't there. And so, I'd say, my mom used to do this, or, she used to like this. And it was like, well, yeah, she's here, but she's not really here. Right. And I had a friend who told me this amazing story about her father who had Alzheimer's, and a week before he died, he called her up, and he had never been someone when she was growing up who told her that he loved her. But about a week before he died, he called her on the phone and started saying, I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you on the phone. And it was this moment of clarity for her and connection for her in a week before he died. And I realized that I was missing that opportunity with my own mom. And every time that I was seeing her, I was seeing this ghost of who she used to be. And that haunted me, that ghost. Mm-hmm. And I decided in that moment to go back and see her again and try to just embrace who she is right now. Mm-hmm. And try to erase the ghost. Mm-hmm. And it was a completely different experience for me to walk into the room and no, she's not recognizable compared to who she used to be. And no, she doesn't know my name. But every time a new person walks in the room, she lights up. She still loves people. There's this like spark still, Mm-hmm. And we can still connect through music. And we can still connect through touch, like if I massaged her shoulders, she would moan and, be happy with that. And she was someone who was living in the moment and I wasn't. So there was still so much to learn and experience and connect with in who she was,
Right. Yeah, totally.
She passed away a couple years ago. So now I do speak about her in past tense, but that was really eye-opening for me.
Right. Yeah. On that note, we had a question, which was how often do I go visit my mom? Mm-hmm. And so I'll say, so my parents, as I said, we're in a fortunate situation. My parents live about 5 minutes away, and they live in a duplex. And my mom is on one side with full-time care, and my dad is on the other. So he's, of course, with her more than even probably we would want because we want him to feel good and have a life. But he can also go to his side and close the door and be, as you said, alone and sort of catch his breath. And that's such a wonderful situation. But for me, honestly, it's been a real journey. My mom was diagnosed probably close to 15 years ago. And so, for the first 7-8 years, they didn't live here. They lived, on the other side of the country. And I would fly in, go every few months. And that was when, every few months I'd come back and be like, oh, wow, a few months have passed, she's that much worse. Right. I equated it to, when you see a baby, if you see a baby every day, you don't notice that they're growing. But if you don't see a baby for 6 months, it's like, oh, my God, it's a different human being. Yeah. And so And now these days, it's a balance. Some days I'm just not up for it. And other
Mm-hmm.
days I just want to go sit with her and hold her hand.
Mm-hmm.
My mom has not been able to speak for a couple years. And I'm not one who can just talk and talk and talk, although I'm doing it right now. But I started reading to her. She used to read Danielle Steele novels. And so now I read her Danielle Steele books.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Which is amazing when you get to the sex scenes.
Oh no.
But anyway, that's what I did. What, did you have a sort of routine? Like, what would you do? Like, when words were gone. I mean, you talked about touching and those sort of feelings. What was your, like, how did you find the balance in what you needed for your emotional health and versus being there for her and your dad?
Yeah, that's such an interesting question, because what do you do when you can't sort of complete the relationship with your parents? That I may have a certain understanding and healing, but I'm not going to see that from her because she's
Right.
not capable of it. So I needed a lot of support away from her. I worked through a lot of it with my therapist. It was really helpful. And then with her, finding connection, as I said, in the moment. And for us, it was with music a lot. There were songs that I played from when she was younger, from when I was growing up, songs that I knew she remembered. And she would get up, she would dance when she was still able to do that. It would wake her up. It would awaken a part of her brain that had shut down. So music was a really wonderful way. My dad also did music therapy with her. So if she would cry out, this was when she really wasn't speaking, if she would moan or cry, he would match that in tone, pitch, so that she would feel heard, and then sort of calm it down, so that he would match her and then lead her down so she could calm, and that worked really well for him.
Yeah, totally. A few more questions we have here. Question is, oh gosh, I get this. How do I embrace who dad is now when I just start crying around him? I can't always hold back the tears, which is not good for dad to see. Oh boy, I get that. Do you want to take that one? Or should I?
Well, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I think, again, so much of this, my family's been facing this for a really long time. And it was interesting early on. I think my dad didn't quite understand how devastated I was by this. He got that his partner was gone, but there were a few times he said, "What are you?" I said, "I had such a good therapy session. I was really feeling so dark and so sad, and I feel better." And he said, "What are you so sad about?" And I said, "Well, I'm losing my mom to Alzheimer's disease." And I think that in these moments, touching on even the stigma, not just of Alzheimer's disease, but of human emotion, of depression and sadness, which is something that our society is finally talking about more, of just saying, this is affecting me. I'm a human and I'm allowed to feel sad about this. And I just can't be brave in this moment. And it all comes from love.
Right. I absolutely agree with that. And I don't think tears are a bad thing. They're tears of joy sometimes and tears of sadness sometimes. And I appreciate being able to have the freedom to feel how I feel, as caregivers, we're constantly trying to manage the emotions of the other person, but you can't.
Totally. Another question. And I'm so sorry. Someone says, my sister-in-law's mom passed away a few weeks ago from Alzheimer's. How can I help my sister-in-law? I'm so sorry for your whole family for having gone through that. I think for me, again, it's all about support, but also sharing your story, something that Kim just touched on, that for me, I felt nothing but sadness until I started talking about it. And
for me as well, yeah. And because it's a long illness, and so for me, I kind of bottled up so much of it because I was just trying to survive. So getting from survival mode to healing mode is really important, and I think, and it's also a hard disease. I think for people, I don't know if you experience this, but it's hard for people to hear about. So for me, it was wonderful to connect with the Alzheimer's Association and with you, Lauren, and other people who've been through what I've been through, because it's so much easier to just talk about it with people who understand. Because it gets to be too much for people that haven't been through it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's one of those things, it's so isolating. It's isolating for caregivers, it's isolating for the patient, and I think we have so much fear, rightly so, because it is terrifying, and I get it. But to try to push through that fear and surround your loved ones with as much love as you can, which is certainly not easy, but to try. Okay. Well, I think we have time for one last question here. Something that we sort of touched on last time, which I know, Kim, you're sort of learning about these days as well, which is knowing that your mom had this horrible disease. You worry about it happening to you. Have you learned ways to prevent or delay it? So as I have talked about before, yes, I have, in the past few years, been really taking steps to live a brain healthy lifestyle. I've gone hardcore since the last August to live a brain healthy lifestyle, which is that I exercise every day. I have done genetic testing and know my risks. We don't have all the information in the world about our genes, but I, know a fair amount at this point. I am a healthy eater. I try to avoid sugar, although not all the time. Treats you have to sometimes. I take supplements that match with my genetics that are supposed to help with those things. I personally find, it fortunate that science has gotten to a point where maybe we don't know everything, but I'm willing to explore it. Where are you at these days with this kind of stuff?
Yeah, I'm definitely trying to take steps. You inspire me so much, and I do as much as you do as far as prevention, but I'm definitely taking steps in that direction. So I'm exercising much more. I've, been in contact with Dr. Isaacson in New York and learned about all the work that he's doing, which sounds amazing. So what I've really tried to do is up my exercise. I have always been a yogi, love doing yoga, love walking, but I haven't done enough of that rigorous exercise. And I know, they know the science has proven that if you exercise your heart, you'll exercise your brain. So getting the blood pumping is so important, to the point where it's hard to have a conversation, really, really rigorous exercise. So I've started cycling and stuff like that, and it's great. I can feel clearer when I do that. I've definitely cut sugar, way, way down. I used to be a big sugar junkie. So I do that, and I'm also trying to pay much more attention to sleep. And how much I'm getting and the quality of sleep is so important. And then the other thing that I'm doing that really helps, that is having connections with people in the community. And for me, having an annual fundraiser in Nashville is really invigorating for me. It's a dance party. September 29th is this fun 80s dance party, and music is a way that I connected with my mom. So it's a great way to just dance all night and get the exercise, get the connection with the people that know what I've been through, and then to raise money for research.
Yeah. I mean, that's so important, and we'll wrap up on that message, which is sharing your story, being part of a community, taking action against anything that we care about that affects our lives will make us feel power. And in a disease like Alzheimer's and dementia, we have some power against the science at this point, but not all the power. And so what we can control is our actions. And so when we are sharing our stories, or throwing a fundraiser if you have the ability to, or attending a fundraiser, or just connecting with someone, giving them a break, helps so much. Anything else you want to add before we thank everyone?
I love all these comments. People are sending lots of hearts. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and for your love and your stories and support. I'm reading the comments, and it's just great to get feedback. Tell Brad I said hi. Okay, I will tell Brad you said hello.
And I saw someone comment in about how to find caregiving resources. Hilarity for Charity has a program where we provide care for caregivers who really need it. So you can go to hilarityforcharity.org and learn more about it and apply for care. So you can do that. And we'll end it with: share your story, connect with a friend, give a caregiver a break, give yourself a break, and maybe go out and take a walk, and it could help your brain. So
yes,
Yeah. Thank you so much, Kim. This was so great. Thank you
Thanks,
everyone
Lauren.
who
It was
checked
awesome.
in.